You. All right. So get ready to give me the address of the property. That,
Okay,
so in terms of what is it worth and what would they net? So the
right.
program that I would use in the documents I have for the step-by-step guide, and there's a section about listing a house, right? I don't know if you're familiar with that, but there's a step-by-step guide as to what you should do once you've joined EXP. And I'll share it directly with you in case and it looks like this.
Oh,
Now,
I haven't seen that one yet.
all right, it's in emails and
Okay,
a lot,
maybe,
there's a lot of stuff, I know, right?
yeah.
It's hard to, it's like a fire hose of things. So your email is
MS Pool,
MSB.
PUA. There it is.
All right, thank you. Google remember. Good for Google. And then, right. So it's better if you're not into Google Docs and things like that. If you go to File and you click on Add a shortcut to Drive rather than copying it. What that means is that if I add something, change something, it'll appear when you click on it, right? Because you have a shortcut which has the current document rather than a copy of the document the last time we talked. You get what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Mm-hmm.
there's a section called Preparing for a Listing Appointment. And one of the things to start with, let's say you've worked out pricing and all of that, and you want the listing filled out. Our transaction coordinator will help you do that. You'd click on this form and fill it out. This is her contact information. She charges $400 when escrow closes, if escrow closes. But if it doesn't close or any of that sort of stuff, then there's no fee. Then there's some information about home sellers. This is from the California Association of Realtors. You could actually show it with them. Let's Talk is a script. And I actually have a more recent version of this, which I put in the information that I sent out or in the weekly. Here, let me see if I can talk better. In the weekly information that we send about training, there's, I updated it, so I'm going to just update it here. That's not right. Provided too much stuff. So let me, here. And this is from like a week or two ago. It's called Big Agent Meeting. And just copy that. All right. I'm going to, it's not like there's a huge difference between the link that I have and it's just more recent. And so everything is 15. So I'll make that. I'll say, sorry that you have to watch me
No worries.
make the
I'm
sausage.
good.
All right. So then here's information about how to do a CMA. I made a video. I have a link to training. There's a pre-appointment questionnaire. There are some sample questions that you might want to ask. There's a marketing plan, there's a sample here, which you can modify that explains what you're going to do. There's links to the EXP Seller Toolkit. There's links to strategy. Selling Your Home Guide is just, I was told today, been updated. There's a new one. It comes out quarterly. It'll be changed in later today. It'll be on Workplace. Questions, other information like this would be some of the questions you would ask. All right. So anyhow, I'm just saying that's there as a resource. So let's go back to, wow, I have so much stuff open. I'm looking for, so the program that I would use to start with is called RPR. Well, the video on how to do this is me doing this in RPR. What's the address of the property?
1034 Lynn, Lynn Way.
There. Tiny bit.
There it is. Yeah.
It knows where you live. All right. So we start off with what's called an AVM, which is an automated valuation model, like Zillow's estimate is an automated valuation model. What I do with this is you can click on the number or view details. It takes you to the same place. And what they're doing here, first of all, it shows that their confidence level is 3. Now, it explains someplace what confidence level means, but what it means is, oh, that's where it explains it. It means that it's expected accuracy obviously is higher. Now, the way they would know that, if it's 5-star or 1-star, is what other automated valuation models like Zillow and Redfin and Realtor.com and Homes, what are all the other programs that tell you what a property is worth? What do they think? And it kind of it uses that to judge. Now, notice it's only got 3 stars, which means not very good, right? Now, I then would start by looking at the description of the property. It's a 3-2, 1795, built in 53. All right. So as we scroll down, you'll see that there is no property just like it. The other thing that I would notice is that all of the comps it automatically came up with are off-market properties. Off-market means it didn't go through the MLS, which means we don't know what it looks like inside. We don't know, right? So that's just, to start with. Then you would go down to create CMA and then confirm facts. One of the questions you always want to ask a potential seller is to have them describe their house and mention any upgrades or renovations they've done. Now, the describe your house, you might think, well, why do I need that? We can see it's a 3-2, built in 53, 1,795 square feet. Many times when you show up, it's a 5-3 and it has 2,800 square feet. How is that possible? Well, they did things maybe without permits. So many times when you get there, what you're looking at is not what the tax record says. Because if people added a bedroom or a bathroom and they didn't bother with permits, then it won't be reflected in the tax records. It's always good to ask them, describe your property and see if it matches what's in the county record. Have you made any improvements, renovations? They're going to want to tell you anyhow, right? But we're going to confirm the facts. Notice that means we've asked them, describe your property, and they said, well, it's a 3-2, it's about 1,700 square feet. All right, great. So the facts are the facts. If it was different, by the way, on that previous slide, we would, on that far column, put in 5 bedrooms, 3 baths, 28. We'd put in reality. Right. And the question I often get is, what should I do when I list it? Should I list it as a 3-2 or a 5-3? And the answer is you list what you see, which is a 5-3. Now, you might mention in the disclosures that the buyer should check, do their own research. And that's mentioned several times in the disclosures given to the buyer. But, it is a 5. If it were a 5-3, you would list it as such. And you would look for comps that matched what it really was. But anyhow, I'm assuming it's a 3-2. Now, since I already know there isn't a lot of comparables, I'm probably going to go back 6 months. I would draw a shape, a radius, and the most accurate comparables are within a quarter of a mile. However, we're going to go out to half of a mile roughly and search in this area. And what it's telling us, remember, we have a 3-2, 1795 built in 53. Here's a 4-2 built in 53. That's interesting. It's smaller, but they've got an extra bedroom. Here's a 3-2 built in 1961. Notice how much smaller it is. Part of the problem is that these dollars per square foot don't scale. So smaller properties have a higher dollar per square foot than bigger properties. They just do, right? And so this one here, which was one of the things we're looking at, it's $1,942 a square foot. This one is $1,991 per square foot. And we might say, well, that's close enough, built later, but then it's not like we have a whole bunch of exact comps. Now, this is a 5.3. That's not much difference in the square footage. It sold for 1,300. If we add that, notice how it's just changed the range. Now, considering you haven't seen the property, this is a comp. It's within a quarter of a mile. It's sold in the last 6 months, built the same year, right? We shouldn't just ignore it. Now, this one, again, is very small, which means it has usually a higher dollar per square foot. It's a 3.1. So what you really want are, at the minimum, 3 sold properties, right? Now, here's a 3.2. Look at this one, 1748. Ours
Pretty
is
close.
really close, built the same year. It's about a third of the mile. I would look at this one, right? You click on it and it pulls it up. Because you might want to read and look at the picture, right? Read about it. Top rated Cherry Chase, Homestead High, remodeled kitchen, new refrigerators. Read about it, right? And then maybe look at the picture. Because if I were an appraiser, this is the one I'd be paying the most attention to, right? Because it's about the same size, built the same year, same bedrooms and bathrooms. However, ours may not be in the same condition. It might not be in Homestead High School, right? Though, I mean, you see what I mean? We're really picking out what comps are really good. Now, here's some 62s and 55s, and they're further away. As we scroll down, they get further away. Now, here's some for sale properties. These are active listings. Now, if we add them, they're going to adjust our range. However, what I would be pointing out is these two here on San Bernardino and the one here on Cumberland are bigger, but look at their prices. So I could buy, apparently, a 5.3 that's 2,000 square feet for under $2 million, maybe, assuming there aren't multiple offers. I could buy a 5.3 even bigger for 2.8. Now that's, it's not just the ones that sold, it's what are our competition, right? If you were a buyer in that neighborhood, what choices would you have? Well, you would have these two, and they have more bedrooms and they're bigger, right? This one in particular, I'd be looking at. It just went on the market in 8 days. And again, if you click on it, you can do deeper reading. Is there a reason that it's under 2, but the RVM is 2.4, right? Is there a reason, right? And it might be that and they say they have new flooring and things like that. Now, they might be, because it's only been on the market 8 days, deliberately underpricing it. This is a strategy. Right. So if you deliberately underprice it and then you say, hey, we're taking offers in 2 weeks or something like that, you might get a whole bunch of offers and it might sell for significantly more. Right. They have tenants probably here because it says they need 2 hour or two. No, they don't. 2 hour notice. All right. Samet Shaw has been around a long time. But so the question really is this really a comparable? Like, for example, it wouldn't hurt for you and your client to go to that open house together. Take a look at it. All right. Because if you put this other property on the market right now, this would appear to be the competition. But then we haven't seen it. There are pictures. It's up to you to, spend more time thinking about this. All right, now the pending, which again is small, about the same, 4.3. The thing about the pending is a question would be and this is in my list of things to do, but you would ask the listing agent, email, text, phone call. You would say, "Hi, my name's Mike. I'm an agent with DXP Realty. How are you doing today? Great. I have a listing coming on the market not very far from the one that you sold on Parkington. I noticed that it's a pending sale and it's listed to close." You'd look it up. And could you give me an idea? Did you guys get list price, above list, below list? Give me an idea if you don't mind. Now, particularly if this one is closing soon, why not tell you? Because if I'm rude to you, there may be a time when you have a listing and I want to know. And you're going to remember that I didn't tell you, so you're not going to tell me, right? But the point would be that this one, when it closes, is going to be a very recent what's happening in the market right now example, right? And if an appraiser is appraising your listing, this will be a comparable. So if this one is a high dollars per square foot, that's really good. If it's significantly less, because we just know the list price, it's not so good, right? Did they get 2.5 or did they get 2.2, right? They listed it, notice they listed it at just under 2.4. So the idea is that that'll attract more people and they'll get, you understand, we want to know, did they get 2.5? Did they get 2.3? Right? Did they get, tell me. Oh, come on, tell me. And so now we have an idea of what's going on in the market. All right. So there's some things here for you to do. You have access to, RPR. You're going to want to look and maybe read the descriptions of all the properties that are going to be comparables. You should read them, right? Just because, you ought to know, and so if we click on update valuation and close, what it's going to do, and let's see, our spread is pretty great. It gives a sort of an average, but that's not necessary. We can make adjustments. Like, for example, if we know one is way better than ours, we can move a slider over. If we know that ours is way better than the other one, we move the slider the other way. But what you could do at this point is just create a report. Now, the default report for a CMA is called the seller's report, but you may want to customize it. And the reason is that they have, if you printed out all of this, it's like over 70 pages. Now, all of this market activity stuff, which are things that have happened essentially in the same zip code, recently, they just throw it all in. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're comparables. And sometimes people say, well, what about this one? And you say, well, that's not a comparable. And then they're like, well, why did you put it in the report? Really. Because I don't know why. So the rest of this is okay. Market health and comparisons. And if you then, when you're done, simply go down and you could email it to somebody, but I would rather look at it first. And over here on the right-hand side, all this stuff is by default going to be put in. Now, you need some of these things, but you do not need the office address. You do not need the broker website. You probably don't need, well, the work phone is usually your cell phone, whatever you put in. Broker logo is fine. Your license number is fine. If in your profile, you said realtor, your neighborhood professional, real estate consultant, the dream maker, right? Whatever you call yourself, that would show up, and you'd have to modify your profile. Office name, that sounds good. Brokerage name, they're the same thing, right? It's your email, any designations, your photo, that means you've gone into the profile and uploaded your photo, right? But once you've done this, you can also have page numbers if you want. So you could say, well, it's on page, whatever. So once we've done this, you would go down and click on Run Report, and it's going to run the report. And it's a PDF. What I oftentimes do is I create a Google folder for a listing, which I share with the client. Now, I might have two folders, one that I don't share and a subfolder that I do share, depending on, depending. But the folder, I would share it with the client and start putting things like this in it. So on their phone or, it's a shared Google Drive folder. And as other things, if they have documents that they want you to have, all they need to do is put it in the folder. That makes it, So this is what it looks like as default. I don't have a lot of extra stuff, but and it uses a Google, Street View. You could change the photo if you went and took a picture. It's got a estimate. This is what the RVM is. This is the comp. Sometimes I just don't include this page. It's sometimes a mistake for us to show up and say your house is worth 2.5 or 2.8, right? And because that's just an average. We have to see the house. And what I usually do, and I'm talking about value, is I usually would delete this page. Do you know how to delete pages in a PDF?
Yeah.
Okay. I use Doc Hub, really easy, and you might not want to have the page numbers. I think in the choices, when we customize the report, there's a choice of getting rid of, where is it? Comp analysis range, result, so there's no listing price. We could even take off the property value section. And then when we run it's like whoever speaks first loses. So before I would go on an appointment, I would ask the seller, hey, just to make sure, how have you been taking, paying attention to what's been going on in your neighborhood? I didn't say that very smoothly, but let me repeat it. My question would be, have you been paying attention to what's been happening in your neighborhood? And many times they say, well, yeah. I get stuff from real estate agents all the time. I keep them. I go to the open houses. That's good to know. Again, it put in a estimated value. I thought I had made it do that. This is why I just delete the page. Now, this is just simply what it shows that the owner, just shows what the configuration of the property is, unless they've given us some other information, in which case it would go here. This is just another map, and it shows schools and other stuff, but who cares? This is a, AARP livability score. Do you understand? Some of this stuff you could get rid of, right? Like a lot of this is something I might just get rid of because we're just basically showing off that we know all this detail about their property. Now, this is something I would show them because it's what's been going on, property sales and things like that, and in your area. And it shows that one is an important seller's report. And then they have a bunch of reports, graphs and charts. Now, to tell you the truth, what I usually would just bring, and we'd get rid of all these, I usually don't take all those pages. I would just start with the comps, right? See where it says comps map? So this is the subject property, and these are the comparables. And then this is a discussion of the comparables. And this is information about the comparables. This is more interesting, right? Because this is what they're going to want to make sure you know about. So and then I get rid of the page of all of the vendors who paid for advertising, right? So we want a cover page, we get rid of that page. We might want to show them this so we can ask them, is there anything here you see that's inaccurate? I would get rid of that and all of these other charts. Now, the reason you might say, well, charts are cool and I want to know what's going on in the market. What my recommendation is that you go, when we're looking at the property, we're going to, let me just copy this. And I have a listing presentation, and you can see where I've taken snippets from this. But you go to research and you go to residential market trends. And what we just really want, what am I looking for, is their zip code. Now, we could just say, we could start with Sunnyvale and ignore their zip code for now, but I'm copying it and we go back. Oh, well, let me do a better job rather than showing source code. So what this is doing is it's giving us some more to the point, what kind of market are we in Sunnyvale? And if we go over here and we say we're only interested in single family, because we don't have a condo or a townhouse, notice how the slider even moved over. We've got low inventory. People are getting about 10% over what the list price is. See, that's important in our pricing strategy. There are three ways, and this is explained in my, stuff, which is linked in there, but there are three ways to price property. And when I'm on a listing appointment or talking to a seller, what I would say, let's talk about selling strategy, right? The goal is to get you the most money possible. Now, there are three strategies for listing your house. One is we're having a sale strategy. And in the we're having a sale strategy, we deliberately price the property below where we think it's going to end up, knowing that the market generally ends up higher, right? And we're going to do it lower so that it creates a frenzy of activity. The open houses are like anthills, and the goal is to get multiple offers bidding against each other. That system usually nets the higher price. The second strategy is the price is right, where we go through all of the comparables and we look at all the statistics and we run all the numbers and we decide this is the price and we list it at that price and we don't budge. Sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. And one reason that it doesn't work is because the buyers know that people are usually getting 10% more. And so if you say 2.5, they're thinking, oh my God, they want 3. Right? Because the buyers are factoring in that you're going to have to bid over list price. And then, so now you've got people saying, well, it's not worth 3. But we had a listing in Sunnyvale, single family house. The owner insisted that he wanted 1.6, right? We said, let's list it lower. And he said, no, let's do 1.6. I want to stick to that. Couldn't sell it. After a few weeks, we convinced him, this is a Sunnyvale single family home. Didn't sell, right? I mean, it's not like we're talking about, something that would normally be difficult. We got him to lower the price by 150,000, and then he sold it in a few days for over 1.6. Because he ended up getting more than what he said was his number once we lowered the price and got multiple offers. Yeah. And then the third way to price a house is called the needle in the haystack. And that's where we price the property deliberately way above what we think it's going to sell for in case some crazy rich person stumbles in and buys it. Right? But then it may have to appraise, which will be a problem. Those listings generally are known in the business as expired listings. The ones that use the let's start high, we can come down later. Because most properties are selling in 7 days. See that? So if we start high and wait a few weeks, it doesn't work, then we lower the price down into where the sweet spot is. Well, but you see, now our days on market are high. And buyers are going to be saying, well, wait a second, the average days on market is 7 and you've been on the market 25 days. What's wrong with you? All those people that have seen it so far, they can't all be wrong. Something's wrong. Right? You see, the point is we want to be able to sell it. We need to list it with room for people to overbid. and we want to do it quickly, so we don't get the, reputation of, now. So, and you can say, so that one is the one that I would focus on. You don't have to go through the presentation. You can slide this in front of them. And if you go up to share, you can see that there is, under more, you can make a PNG or a JPEG out of it. All right. And if we, just so you can see what it looks like. And that it's just that, right? So sometimes there isn't, unfortunately, a full page version. But anyhow, it's sort of included. What I would recommend that you do as a different exercise is you create a Google document. And the Google document is this address. Do I still have it in my computer? No, of course, not so quickly. So anyhow, I'm just going to do this for now. All right. So one of the things you're going to want to do is ask, what does Zillow think? Right now, I don't know how geeky you are, but if I were really doing this, I would go to Google and I would open up a Google Sheet, and I would create a spreadsheet, and I would start typing in Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com, RPR, Homes.com, and the point of this is we want to know what they think the property is worth. So we're going to put in RPR's number. Why is that important? Because agents are going to look up the property in RPR, and they're going to see that number. And we should at least take into consideration that the agents with buyers are going to see that number. And also, are they going to look and see what Zillow says and Realtor.com and Redfin? Of course they are. So you put in what those automated valuation models is, and what I usually do is then I average it underneath. And once I've done this, I would copy it and go back to the Google document and paste it in. Notice it'll link to the spreadsheet. Thank you, Google. So if I make changes in the spreadsheet, they will appear here, right? So that, and then I could take this one and I go to more and I say, I want to copy it. And yes, I know it's in the clipboard, and I go back here and come on. There we go. There it is. Right? Because, and now if you're saying, well, okay, maybe a little bit more, I don't know. If we go to, and this is, in my material, if but I'm giving you the shortened version of it. I keep a list of all the different places you can get statistics from the California Association of Realtors. And I'm going to stick it in the chat.
Michael,
Yeah.
quick question. The RPR, you said I have access to it. Is that through EXP, or is that through CAR, or is that through the MLS?
Yes. So,
yes, to which one?
oh, yes. Unfortunately, a couple of them deserve a yes. So, first of all, RPR is a benefit for being a member of the Association of Realtors. It's the RPR stand for Realtors Property Resource. So if you ain't a realtor, you don't get RPR. If you are a realtor, you get RPR. Now, depending upon how do you get to it, how do you access it, the two ways of doing it, the first is through the MLS. So in your MLS, when you log in, if you look around, you're going to see something that says RPR. Or you could just go to rpr.com, NARRPR.com. Or if you go to LinkedIn and you type in RPR, you'll see that they have a LinkedIn account. Of course they do. and they post all the training that they're going to do. And you'll see in my step-by-step guide, I have links to how to learn how to use RPR. I've made videos too. All right. And because it's even though it's connected to your MLS, the database is national. So if you have a client who says, I'm thinking of buying a property in, Bumblebee, Arizona, you can pull up comps and things like that in Bumblebee because you're not a member of that MLS, but the Association of Realtors probably is. So that's how they get the data. So, and you might want to learn how to use it, just, because this is the program we usually use to do a what is the property worth analysis. And that would be for a buyer as well. This is one of the core things that you would need to learn at some point, right? RPR.
So the Google Doc that you just created with the comparison of the different companies as well as the market trend, that form, is this something you would include in your CMA, or is this,
I would just bring it with me. So most of the CMA is for show, and just because somebody thought that the more is better. But as Frank Lloyd Wright said, less is more. So what I usually don't go through that, it's like 70 some pages of graphs and charts and background. I mean, who cares, right? What the seller wants to know is, what is my house likely to sell for? And specifically, what would you list it for? Right. So one of the things you're going to have to try and guess is, what would you list it for? Now, it's appropriate for you to say to a seller, I need to see the property and then I need to do more research. That if an appraiser came and looked at your property, the appraiser doesn't give you a number when they walk out the door. The appraiser takes notes and then goes and does in-depth research. That's the most professional way to give you an accurate valuation. So it's a two-step process. First step is we're going to meet and go through the property, and I'm going to take notes. And the second step is I'm going to do all the research and put together a report. I'll have it for you.
So when I'm meeting with the seller for the first time, I would create something like this, just like as a teaser.
Right. What does the seller want to know? Right. Well, obviously, what are you going to list it for? Which is based on comps. So out of all that crap that was in RPR's report, the part that would be most important is the comps. And within comps, there was that one property that was pending. Now, you see, the nice thing about that is you could say, we don't know yet, but I'll be able to find out. And this is going to be a comparable, and it's going to affect your value. And we're gonna once you've hired me, I'm going to find out what that property is selling for. And then you would want to, in the comps, look for one or two properties that, if you were an appraiser, you'd be looking at. And you show those to the seller. Now, some sellers don't even want to see that. They just want to know the number you would suggest, right? But you could show those to the seller. And it's not like the whole thing, just a couple of comps that are closest. Does that make sense, right? Because you don't need all that stuff. Now, this I would show them, because what Zillow thinks and Redfin thinks and Realtor.com thinks and RPR thinks is going to affect buyers' decisions, because they're going to know those numbers, right? Even before they look at your property. So we ought to know what they are. Right?
Okay, so let's say the house, we had that one comp that sold for $2,900. That was the most closest to her size.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one that's closest to her size. But
this is the one, sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Was it this one?
Yeah, this is the problem. This is the potential floor, the anchor.
Oh, this is okay.
All right, because this is a smaller, but not by a lot. I mean, excuse me, this is a bigger. I was thinking of two of them at once. This is a big house with more bedrooms and bathrooms. and it was listed for 1,888,000. That's a nice, lucky number, right? Right.
Right.
So they've listed it for that. But we don't, when this sells, it's going to be important for comparable purposes to know, did they get more than 1.999888, which I'm sure
They will.
they are intending on getting a lot more probably.
Hmm.
Right. And so, or did they not? And how long does this sell? Because right now, today, if somebody wanted to make an offer on the property, that one is bigger and, listed for under two. And they're going to buy that one first, right? In other words, if this is still on the market and we list ours for 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, we've got a problem in that one would have to sell first, right? Because somebody's going to buy it before they buy ours.
So showing this or knowing this, and you have the conversation with the seller, because the seller has in their mind, I want 2.6,
Right.
2.7.
Right. But one of the things yes, and that's our goal. First of all, one of the advantages, remember the three strategies. So once I've gone through the three strategies with the seller, I ask them which strategy do they think would be best for their property. Most of the time, they say strategy number 2, price is right.
Right.
Which point I say, I'm sorry. I apologize. I obviously didn't explain this well. Let me explain this again. There are 3 strategies for pricing your home. The one that generates the most offers and the highest prices and the best net to the seller is strategy number 1. Strategy number 1 is where we deliberately price your property below, like look at this one, below where we think it's going to end up, to create a frenzy to get multiple offers. And if we get multiple offers, we're going to get higher offers. The more people that want it, the more people want it. Right. And what we want are multiple offers. There'll be better offers. They'll have better terms, and we're going to get a better price. If we do prices right, notice we said in our little graph that people in general are getting 10% on average more than what they listed it for. So if we listed for 2.4, that means we're looking for another $480,000. Right? We're really looking for 2.8. Right? Well, our house isn't worth 2.8. But buyers are thinking if they listed it for 2.4 and people are generally selling it for 10% more, oh my God, are they crazy? It's not worth that much. Remember the example, we had listed it in Sunnyvale, didn't sell, we lowered it enough for this effect to take effect, and they got more than what they had listed it for when it was all over. But we had added unnecessary days on market.
Okay. So like you said, this is the anchor. This is the one that's currently for sale that could potentially either up it or bring it down, basically. Right. So
the computer thinks it's worth 2.4. They listed it for under 2. I mean, who are they kidding? Right. Yeah. I mean, and by the way, I would go to that open house. If they have a virtual tour, I would look at it. Right. But go take it.
What about that one that did sell for the 2.9 on Knickerbocker? Would that come into play?
Yeah. Parkington was a 4.3, 1740. Again, the one thing that this does nicely, our PR, is that it averages everything. Right. Remember that spread. It sort of tells us. But yeah, there was Knickerbocker.
That Parkington is near.
Yeah, 3.2, near. Very close in terms of size and square footage. Again, this is the one I said we need to look at the difference in the condition of this one and the condition of your client. Right? Because this seems like they've done a lot of stuff to it. Look at the pictures. And by the way, if you can, do you have a lockbox key?
Yeah.
So you could make go look at it. Even the other one, there's an open house. Or this one, I don't think said it. But then, I don't know. It's been on the market a little bit longer. But if you look at in
But
the MLS,
isn't this one sold?
oh, I'm
This
sorry.
20,
I
this
was
one
back on
sold.
the other one. I was back on the other one. Yeah,
Yeah.
this one's sold. We just need to read, all we have are pictures.
So the Parkington, which is pending, is one that I could go take a look at.
Or at least talk to the listing agent.
Okay.
They may not let you look at it. If it's a contingent property, then they still want you to show it. If it's
Okay.
not contingent, they don't want you to show it. And so
Okay.
when you look in the MLS, there's two categories. One is contingent and one is pending. Now, if it's contingent, they'll probably let you look at it. If it's pending, no.
Okay.
But that's going to be a comp.
Okay. So
Um,
in what we've just looked at, we've looked at one that's currently for sale, which is the Bernardo. We have a pending, which is on Parkington, which is soon to close. And
right,
then we have the Knickerbocker that closed.
right. And those are
Okay.
the best because rather you're not going to go through everything, right? This, you have like a projector and a screen and a little virtual stick. So it's better to just go over a few comps. And if you sell the pricing strategy where we start low, you don't have to hit the number exactly because we're deliberately starting lower than where we're going to end up. We're not doing strategy two where we predict, right, with our crystal ball what the property should sell for. Because there aren't a lot of great dead on comps. There aren't any other 5.3 same model built the same year or 3.2s built the same year, same model that have sold within a quarter of a mile. There aren't any.
Uh-huh.
And so we're guessing. And if we start low, then we're not committing ourselves to a particular guess. If we start where we want to end up, we've kind of committed ourselves.
Okay, so now we're back in this CMA. Of
Yeah.
the CMA, you're saying what forms what would you show the seller?
All right.
What
I
would you
would cover sheet. I would skip
uh-huh.
that. That would be useful because we could say confirm that these are the home facts. This one, maybe, but the reason what's on this page that I might want to confirm with the seller, it's the schools. Because this is an automated thing, and do they have any information? Now, I'm pretty sure this is Cherry Chase and Sunnyvale
Yeah,
Middle.
those are correct.
Right,
Yeah.
but if you don't care about that, but you might want to keep it with you. You understand this one is optional.
Yeah.
Right? But it doesn't hurt. This one, I'm not sure I would include it. I don't know of anybody who's really that concerned about the AARP livability index, but there it is. Right? You can, and buyers might get that information, but I don't know. You could show it to the seller. That one's very optional. Now, this is property history. It's up and downs, assessed values. That one is very optional. Why? I usually don't give them that one. This one is kind of useful in that this is sort of a their automated valuation model showing the ups and downs. Right. But then I use that other screenshot that I showed you. Right. So I would drop all the statistic stuff. The only ones is the cover sheet, home facts, extended home facts. And then on this, out of this, those are the most important. When we get down here are the comparables, the comps maps, the comps, and maybe the pages, if you've got a lot of printer ink, the value of these is that if you get into a discussion of what was it like compared to yours, you at least have the background information. Now,
Okay.
if you're techie, you're in Sunnyvale, one of the apps you would want to download is the RPR mobile app. Because what you could do, because what I would want you to do is to do this on your, get set up an RPR and do this, what we just went through. And that's, I'll send you a recording so you could, go through that again. But what you're going to want to do is create your own, get your own RPR account, get your picture, get everything up on it. And then you do your own search and run your own CMAs and then save it. You'll see in RPR that there is, if I go back to the beginning of RPR, up here where it says my work, there's my saved properties, also my recent properties. So if I were going to save one, I would simply go to the subject property and see my recent properties. And notice it's showing the others as well that I've been looking at. I click on this one, see the button that says save? Once I save it, what it's going to be easier for me to find, and on my phone, when I open up the RPR app, there's a little button that says Save Properties, and when I click on it, it shows me a list of the ones that I have currently saved. Your list, this one will be on the list, and when you tap it, you now have digital access to all of this information, including the comps, including the CMA. And you can actually make adjustments. And I've been on listing appointments where they had, the agent that I was doing it with didn't follow ask the seller to describe their house. So she looked it up in the tax records and it was a 3.2, 1,300 square feet, but it was really a 5.3, 2,800 square feet. So the CMA she prepared was worthless because, they weren't even close. But while I gave the guy, by the way, a professional would look at your home first, then do the research, so that I gave myself an excuse for not, doing it right then and there, because we were looking at different properties. While I was talking to the guy and I pulled up the phone app of RPR and I went to save properties, it showed me comps in the neighborhood for the 5.3. And I saw that right nearby was another 5.3 that was also done without permits, just right nearby. And that was going to be the comp, right? And so, but on RPR, I knew what it sold for, I knew what its dollars per square foot was, and I calculated what we ought to price his property based upon that one. And it was accurate within $10,000, went for 1.2. And by the way, we listed it for 999,888. But we were expecting, I told them you were going to get 1.2. But we listed it.
Okay, so with the the different properties that we have, and you're going to list it lower, or you're going to choose option 1, how do you, like, if it was a 5.3 and it's selling for 1,900 for the one that's for sale, you got the 2.9. You make adjustments because of, let's say, the kitchen needs to be remodeled, the flooring needs to be updated. How do you calculate all of that into what you suggest the list price should be?
Well, if we're doing the first strategy, we don't have to be real accurate, right? Because we're deliberately starting low. But when we look at CMA, first of all, there's what's called refined value. And if we clicked on refined value, we can, again, they're giving us another option to say it's 5 and 3 and 2,800 if that's the truth. So if we're making changes, we could do it there and it would auto calculate based on those changes. Now, let's say we know that they had a upscale bathroom addition and that they did that, let's say, in 2019, and why not? And it cost them $50,000, and we add that improvement. Notice it's going to make an adjustment as to how much it believes the value has changed. Now, where do they come up with this? It's from Hanley Wood, which is a remodeling company, and they put out something called the cost versus value report. All right. So, which says you spend so much on that, you get so much when you sell it. But you see, notice they're not getting 50,000 more. The other question, of course, is the comps, do they have these improvements too? Because these would have to be things where we're better than, right? We
Right.
some, now we also can move sliders. Again, this isn't dead accurate, but are the market conditions better, right? Average, maybe things have just picked up. We can move the slider. Exterior condition, ours isn't as good. Interior condition, notice not as good. Lot size, that's about the same. View relative to comparables, oh, we got a great view. I don't know what you have in Sunnyvale, but anyhow, privacy, we're up against the sound wall for the freeway. There's a big apartment complex in our backyard, and people are always watching us. You move the slider. Now, notice what it does is and not super accurate, but it's made an adjustment. What we're really looking for is when we're doing that range of a low of this to a high of that, is to find the comparable for which their house matches the closest. So if they've got unpermitted additions, we're looking for other properties that sold with unpermitted additions. Right? Because that's a comparable. See, the unpermitted condition, first of all, I mean, this may come up, well, what can you do? If it was built to code, you could get it permitted, but you have to pay a penalty. So it could be permitted. If it wasn't built to code, you can fix it and then get it permitted. Or nothing. The buyer just says, I don't care. It's not unsafe. They just didn't bother to get permits. So, but then if you find comps that were sold just like that, you could say, well, and the appraiser is going to use what the appraiser sees. It would be a 5.3, 2,800 square feet, but the appraiser would note that there was a difference in the square footage in bedrooms and bathrooms or whatever from the tax records, which the appraiser would conclude meant that some of the additions were not permitted, which of course doesn't make them worth less, but not worth as much as a permitted addition. So if you were really at the numbers, you'd be looking at both of those. Well, if it was permitted, this is what they sell for, this is unpermitted, and the appraiser sort of has an idea of that. So
let's
good.
Oh, no, finish off your thought.
We're looking for a comp. Sometimes there's only one. Which of all of the comparables, if you were going to say you have to pick one that you would defend a pricing strategy based on, which one would that be? Now, you could say there's a secondary one, but that one is the one we're going to want to talk about the most. The 1,999,888. Same size. More bedroom, bigger. I mean, more bedrooms, more bathrooms. That could be just an outlier. We're going to need to do some research because that will sell before ours. Right. And it's going to become the comp for which they'll judge us. So it's important that we know what's happening.
Okay.
And then show them the other supporting information.
And the other supporting information is
all of those other. Remember, I went through the report and said I'd include this, and this.
Right.
That's supporting information. Go ahead.
Okay, so for the list or the things I pick out of the CMA, you said the face sheet, the home facts, possibly the extended home facts, the comp map, and the comps. Right. And then the piece of paper or the Google sheet that we created, or the Google Doc that we created.
Right, and and if you're in the mood, there's also something that the CAR will give you called the seller's guide. And if you say, well, we're in Santa Clara County, and click on that. And then we're in the city of Sunnyvale, so we're going to click on that. Now the PNG versus the PDF. The PDF is an 8.5 by 11 formatted document. It looks like that. And it doesn't seem to be specific to Sunnyvale. I don't see it, but that may mean that they don't have something auto-generated for Sunnyvale. Maybe I didn't. How I clicked the wrong button. So this is the Sunnyvale report, right? And you could throw that in. It has slightly different numbers because they may be looking at different databases. So you
And
could do that too.
that's in car.
Yeah, that's here. And in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste in the chat the CAR link to where the guides are. And I believe that in my documents about preparing for listing, I have a link, but why not run that? Why not run the statistics?
Okay, so also what about if they want to know what they'll walk away with? Would I?
That is an excellent question. Now, you need to know, I use Brandon at Chicago Title. I'll give you his information. But if I were to search for Chicago Agent One, which by the way, there's a mobile app, right? There's a mobile app. And you create an account. This is free. It's free. And
Yeah, I was on that one that you had the
all
training on, and I did end up signing up for that. I did sign up for the premium for the 99 cents.
right.
But when I did the one seller net sheet, it didn't come out like how Brendan had it, where it was a full sheet and it was all nice and pretty. And
I'll show you. So
okay,
what you have to also ask, this is in my list of questions, is that what you have to ask is, do you have a loan on your property? Do you have an idea of how much is remaining on the loan and what your current interest rate is? We would ask them that question because you can't really do a net sheet without the answer. Now, notice what's popped up is what is the broker fee? So there's going to be one broker fee, which is what the seller's going to pay you to list the property. 2.5, 2, 1.5, that's up to you. If it's $1 million, 1.5 on the side is worth 15,000. And if it's a $2 million property, then it's 30,000. And so the question is, would you represent a buyer for that? Now we're talking about, and then there's a seller side, which is what I should have started with, which is asking the same question. For the listing side, you're going to get 2.5, 2, 1.5, whatever you want to do. And then you might be open to, and I would just put this in. So let's say you're going to do it for 1.5 because it's a relative, right? And I don't know what your intention is. If you were pushing it, you might say, I'll do it for 2%, right? Whatever. A buyer broker fee, this would be the question. And, do you want to, the phrasing I would use, compensate cooperating agents who bring buyers that are ready and willing and able and are willing to make an offer that you like? Would you be willing to consider offering a concession to incentivize the agents that are out there to try to sell your house, right? Would you be, and because isn't what is important is the net, not whether or not you pay a compensation that was used for the buyer's agent. That's not important. The point is your net better. And so you're not going to be committed to paying anything to a buyer broker unless it's specifically asked for in the residential purchase agreement and you agree in the contract to do it. But you don't have to agree, and you can change the amount, and you can think about it depending on the offer.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how much would that typically be? I would say in a $2 million property, if you're offering 2%, now you're not committing to it, right? You're simply saying, would you be open to paying a 2% concession to the buyer to compensate their agent if you liked the net amount and you liked the offer, right? And if they get into it, I've been actually helping agents explain this, but if they get into it, it's better for the buyer to put it in the loan and financing it than it is for them to pay it outside of escrow. So if the buyer has an 80% loan, and we'll use $10,000 as a round number, and it's written into the price, the $10,000 to pay the buyer's agent, then the buyer only has to come up with $2,000 out of pocket because $8,000 is financed, and that's less out of pocket, right? Now, if you say you can't do that, don't write it up in the offer. It's illegal and ethical and immoral. I'm not going to pay anybody anything. If you do that, then two problems. One is that for the buyer, their buying power has just gone down. The price would have been the same, but the buying power just went down because they've got this $8,000 closing cost that they didn't have before. And they may not be able to afford to offer you as much because you're not allowing them to put it into the loan, right? So now other sellers might be saying, hey, buyer's agents, bring me an offer. I want to see it. Sure, I'll give you a concession if I like the offer, do it. So it's sellers thinking, well, if I hold the line and I won't give any concessions to be used for the buyer's agent, 95% of buyers have their own agent, and do you really want to exclude cooperation? I mean, think about it. This is a strategy for you to net the most money. Isn't it the amount you net that's important, not necessarily whether or not there's a concession to the buyer, right?
Right.
Right. So it would be good you need to discuss this. Now, if you go to the seller button and you would, first of all, put in the address because zip codes, closing costs, different cities, different counties. You would want to know what kind of loan does the seller have now, right? Because it can affect closing costs. You would need to have a price. Now, I've got some from before, let's say 2.8, because we're feeling lucky, right? I'm not saying it's right, but it was just there. 2.4. Oops. See, I knew I should have left it alone. 2,400,000. All right. Broker fee. This is optional. We don't really know. How much on the seller side? Let's say you're doing it for, let's be optimistic also, 2%. So you're proposing at most a 4% total listing. Not too bad. Seller concession. Let me get rid of this. I put it in the wrong spot. They added this. At least that's what I'm going to say. So we're going to put it here. 2%. Any repairs that paying a compensation, if the seller's paying the buyer's agent compensation and providing a concession, yes. So we've put in the fact that there may be a concession. Are there any repairs the seller is going to be willing or needs to do? We would put it in there. Other things that might be, we would put in there. There's a bunch of little things. There's an NHD report, which is about $90. The seller might get a termite inspection, property inspection, roof inspection. You would need to bid that out. In other words, you call some of the companies and say, how long, when, and you write down the numbers. So the things that would be miscellaneous that aren't just built into the template are any reports, the NHD, is there going to be, what's the other one? A termite inspection? Is there going to be a property inspection? And do you need a roof inspection? And you'll see that and I have to go in a couple minutes, but the getting those inspections up front mean we're not going to be arguing with the buyers in the middle of escrow because they just found out something about the property. We would put in
Correct.
loan amount, you would put in the interest rates, it'll calculate transfer taxes, you would pick a month or two out for the closing date, and when you compute, and then I got to go. But this, if you go to share or print PDF, see all these pretty different ones on the side. And so you could pick one that you liked. If you like that, you could email it, you could download it, you could print it, you could share it on social media. I don't know why you do that. And you can save it. And you can also, there's an app that goes with this program. So while you're at the client's house, you could modify the net sheet and give them numbers. All right.
Okay.
And
All
then
right.
that's how you get it. Take a look at that. I'm going to, I recorded this. I'll make it available. I'm going to create a checklist. I hope that was helpful. Let's talk more if you need help.
All right. Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Bye.